Will you marry me? That's the question to ask the person who you want to share the rest of your life with. The person you would want to have a family with. The love of your life. Now, this may be the traditional way of asking your partner's hand in marriage.
But for Singaporeans, they pop a different question. That question? Will you BTO with me? But when are you ready to pop this question? How can you be ready to ask your significant other, will you BTO with me?
Can you even afford to BTO with me? Hello, I'm Hongbin Jeong.
And I'm Roshan, Gidwani. And welcome to That's How, where we unfold the step-by-step instructions to guide you to success in anything you aim to achieve. This is your how-to guide to life. And on this episode, we explore how you can be ready to ask, will you BTO with me?
I mean, just last year, in 2023, Singapore was ranked as the most attainable city for home ownership, with the median prices of Housing and Development Board units being less than 5 times the median annual household income. Now, this has helped by various government schemes, such as the introduction of build-to-order flats, which are designed to help Singaporeans afford their own homes. BTO flats have gained significant popularity among first-time home buyers as they provide a practical way to own a home in Singapore. And the popularity has even led to the phrase, "Will you BTO with me?" becoming a common way of proposing marriage among the younger generation.
But romance aside, if we look at the reality, purchasing a house still remains a significant expense, especially considering the continuously rising property prices and cost of living in Singapore. So, should young couples change their questions from "will you BTO with me" to "can you afford to BTO with me"? I mean, we wouldn't want you to pop the question "will you BTO with me" to your significant other, only for your partner to respond to the question, "Can we even afford to?" So how can you be ready?
Well, joining us to help us get prepared to propose the question is Winshern Ho, who is a wealth manager at Phillip Securities, a member of PhillipCapital. Hi, Winshern. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Hongbin. Hi, Roshan. Nice to be here.
Okay, Winshern, I just want to start off. Did you pop the question by asking your now wife, will you BTO with me?
Oh, wow. That has been more than 8 years ago. We did the unconventional route, though. We didn't BTO.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because back then, we decided we didn't want to stay in certain parts of Singapore. We decided to wing it, stay with in-laws for a bit, find some other things away, and really work out our finances because I was quite young. I was like in my late 20s, and I decided to let's get married first. Be the traditional guy. My wife was saying like, I don't want to BTO straight away. I want to make sure that we are okay before we get the house because it's a very big commitment.
Yeah, it is a big commitment. So you chose marriage first and then you decided to get a house.
Exactly.
Now, with the given economic conditions, should young couples settle their BTO first before getting married?
I think you should settle the relationship first. So we do hear some horror stories, right?
Yeah.
Where you get the BTO, you get your flat, and then somehow things don't work out.
Yeah.
It's a very fine in between cases, but we don't want to go down that route. You lose your chance to get a BTO and you lose your deposit sometimes. It's very painful. It's hard to recover sometimes. So it's not just the financial aspect, but this is life you're going to deal with.
To mitigate any further financial concerns, get your relationship straight out first.
Yes.
Now, with the continuously rising cost of living in Singapore, right, what financial considerations should young people prioritize when contemplating home ownership? Now, given that they've already got their relationship all set out, they are the love of their lives and they're going to get married and live happily ever after.
I think for home ownership, the question in the back of your mind should be, what's my exit strategy? Because people go into a BTO or home purchase thinking about, I'm going to stay here forever. But truth be told, with how we pay our houses, how we pay for our flats, the numbers may not work out after 10 to 15 years because of all the different research out there about Bala curves, about accrued interest. And property prices have been growing a bit slower after COVID, after things have been stabilizing. And at the same time, there's so much cooling measures happening. The banks, the governments are trying to cool down to make sure that housing is still affordable for Singaporeans, which I really love about the attainable home ownership in Singapore. So it's about thinking, do I want to stay in this 4-room, 5-room forever? And then don't go overboard to buy a house too big for yourself.
Okay. What are some financial misconceptions about applying for a BTO?
That you don't need cash because renovation costs money.
Yeah.
There's one thing that can surprise a lot of people. And if I do not have my exit strategy in place, I may want to do too much for my house. I want to buy the nicest fridge, the nicest appliances, the nicest furniture, and I sink in so much cash into that renovation cost, fitting out my house. But that does not help me with exiting the property.
Okay, so how can one know that they have enough funds for a BTO? How much of their income should they save then?
Well, as much as you can. Because at every BTO exercise, you might not be able to get the one units that you like. You may have to choose something more expensive. So having more cash on hand, having more cash reserves would help you make that decision. You wouldn't want to be a state where, I need another $50,000 more for the next step. But hey, I've got that $50,000 standby. I can have options. Maybe a certain development, a certain BTO project might not be your ideal situation. You have other options to see, maybe I try the other location. Because now with the changes, right, there's no more mature estate, non-mature estates. We've got prime, standard, and plus. Maybe those options will work out.
So, Winshern, I have a young couple. The husband is 31 years old and the wife is 29 years old. Now, they just applied for a BTO. They had no trouble saving up, but their top concern, have a listen.
For this year's launch, we applied for a 5-room BTO at Woodlands.
Our top financial concern is actually the levy, as currently we are staying in a 4-room resale flat in Pasir Ris.
How can this couple go about this concern?
I think it's more about, do I need a 5-room flat? If I need the space, I have to find the resources. Because if my family is expanding, I need the extra room for privacy for my kids, they're growing up. No matter what, I need to find the money. Be it I do a side hustle, I do more gigs, I do things on the side, I have to finance it. Because life requires me to have that money. Levy aside, plan on life choices, like on life goals. Do I need that space? Because it's a home. And HDB, we do not want to look at it as an investment lottery effect kind of thing. It should be for my own stay and shouldn't be so complicated.
So this couple, just like you, didn't go through the traditional route of applying for BTO and then getting married. So they decided to get married first. They have 2 beautiful children now. And this is all before they applied for BTO. And this was their reason why.
We wanted a house with a lesser waiting period. So we actually tried sales of balance flat, but we got a long queue number.
So we end up getting a 4-room resale flat near my in-laws' house.
Yeah.
So what do you think of couples, getting married first before applying for BTO and having to get another flat or, renting another place in the meantime? Is that okay financially, or should couples delay getting married till they find a place?
Don't delay getting married. If you found your love of life, don't use the housing as a delay factor. Get hitched, get married, be happy, and figure it out together. It's amazing that how I see some couples, they live very separate financial lives. Husband does one thing, wife does one thing, but they don't come together for a common good, which is the relationship. So couples have to be very clear on the onset of the relationship that how do we want to manage the household expenses? Is it one account, 2 accounts, or our account? That's very important because combined income is very, very powerful.
Let's say before your BTO is ready or before you apply and you're renting, right? That also is costing money.
It's painful.
Yeah. So would you say overall waiting is still worth it?
Depends on each individual situation. Right now, there are many opportunities where the governments do have some units where you can rent directly from HDB while waiting for your BTO. Always apply for any support you can get from the government right off the bat. The idea we want to have is, I do not want to put myself in a detrimental financial situation where I do not have cash flow. I don't have cash saved up, just in case I need to do more renovation works, just in case prices go up. So I got my resale flat during COVID. My initial quote for my renovation was about 45,000. But when the prices came in 3 months later, the suppliers called in, no, I need to increase another 20%. Wires, electrical wires more expensive, materials are more expensive, manpower is more expensive. I was like, now from 45, I'm looking at 60,000. I'm like, for such small resale flat. So having that cash on hand, it's both a short-term sprint and a long-term marathon, so we have to look at it both ways.
Right. I see. Okay, let's go for an example situation so that our listeners here can actually gauge of how much they need to save and how much they need to, set aside money for a BTO. Let's say there is this 27-year-old, okay? He's been working since he was 23 years old. He's currently having an average income of 3,500 Singapore dollars. He have a savings that is up to about $50,000. In his CPF ordinary account, he has about 40,000 Singapore dollars, and his monthly spending is about $2,000. Now, is this person ready for BTO? Can he afford to? And can he, even buy a 2-room flat? How much more does he need to save?
2-room flat, no problem.
No problem.
No problem.
Okay.
Because he is in a space where it's comfortable, he has time. The challenge is, can he buy a 2-room flat? Because if he's a single 27, he can't buy. He has to become under a 35-year-old scheme.
Yeah.
So with HDB policies in place, what category, what classification do you come under before you can afford the house? So he has to be married, then he can buy a house. So that's certain things that we need to be mindful for.
So let's say this individual will get married and he's got a girlfriend. He's about to propose to her.
Nice.
Okay. Now this lady wants a bigger flat. She doesn't want a 2-room flat. Then how much more does this individual need to save if they're aiming for a 4-room flat?
Is the wife going to work?
Yes.
Like I was mentioning,
Combined
right?
income.
Combined income is very powerful. So let's look at how much is she going to earn. If she's going to bring it similar, let's take their similar income range, about 3,500 a month, wouldn't be a problem. With all the HDB grants and all the enhanced grants and proximity grants, very possible. So I think the challenge here is, how fancy do I want to make my house into? The 4 walls, you can come in with whatever fitted with HDB, and I can buy stuff off the rack from multiple stores. But if I want to custom make, if I want to have nice glass, nice marble tiles, kitchen island, knock-away walls, those will start to add up. And recently in Kallang Whampoa area, there was this white houses where it's empty inside.
Yeah.
Building walls will cost money.
Yeah.
So how much do I want to do into that house? So it's always thinking about, am I going to stay here 5 years, 10 years? So if I plan to have a family, would that location be near the schools? So there are many small nuances that we should think about in the longer term that will affect my home buying decision. Because no matter what, I have to stay there for 5 years, MOP. And if it's a BTO, I have to wait for it to be built. Then I can wait for my MOP. Then I can exit.
Right.
So it's a good 8, 9, 10 years kind of time horizon. If it's the prime housing, it's a 15-year time horizon. Life changes very quickly as we grow up.
Okay, so let's say then the future wife is not working. Based on just the male's portfolio alone, can he afford a 4-room flat, or how much more does he need to save before he pops the question?
So let's assume the cost of the 4-room flat. If we assume with after grants and everything, we're looking at about 350,000. He may need to save another $20,000-$30,000 more because of your stamp duties, your legal fees. Things don't cost too much if you get everything directly from HDB. But if you need financing from the banks, things get a bit more complicated. And do I want to limit myself just to a BTO? Like the soundbite that we heard earlier, the couple started their family and they need a space and they needed to buy resale. So it's not about living within my means, but it's living below my means, so I've got a surplus. And with that surplus, it gives me options.
It's about planning for tomorrow as well, right?
Yes, it's not just living for today. The present is a present, right? But how do I make sure that my tomorrow is taken care of too?
Okay, patience is the name of the game. Good discussion.
Time horizon, man.
There you go. Okay, now let's discuss saving as well. How can couples save to be ready for a BTO? What are some ways they can do this to expand their finances? Any tips?
Right off the bat, if you are planning to use your CPF OA to make payments for the house, consider topping it up. Top up your cash savings into the CPF accounts, and that will help you buffer up your CPF OA. Some people like that idea, some people don't like that idea. The pros is that you get that guaranteed 2.5% in your OA, your special accounts, and the MediSave accounts. And you can use that cash for your house. The bad thing is once the money goes in, it's very hard to come out. So, but it helps you reduce your income tax too. So depending on your income scale, how much you can consider topping up to maximize your OA returns. That's one option. To lower your taxes, increase your capital for your house. Next, have very clear goals. Like I said, how much reno do I want to do? What kind of fridge do I want to buy? There are fridges that cost $1,000, there are fridges that cost $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Do I need a steam oven? It's the lifestyle choices that we want, right? Or just need an air fryer, like off the shelf. And do I need everything to be air conditioned in the house? Or do I want to have some rooms air conditioned? Because these will add up, and these are all cash. Yeah, I can't use my CPF to pay for this stuff.
Right.
So it's all these bits and pieces that do add up quite quickly.
Yeah, if all the money is in the CPF, there won't be any money for the luxury goods.
Yes.
Yeah.
The nice bags and watches.
Now, would applying for a BTO be a need for Singaporeans? Is it a good choice to do so rather than, let's say, renting or buying a condominium instead?
I didn't have my own BTO. And looking at the options that HDB is coming up with, I would really want to own one right now. The pricing is very competitive for staying. I don't want to have the imagination of I want to make 100% on my BTO price. Yes, we do hear about the $1 million HDBs. We do hear about the $1 million very old terrace HDBs. But it's for my stay. And my money is stuck in my walls. For me to liquidate that and get the money out to spend and enjoy and buy the nice bags and the watches and the cars or travel, I need to sell my home, the roof over my head. So life is very important, right? Life goals are very important. Let me clarify. Life goals are very important. I need to know, am I staying or this is just a transit? Because some of my clients right now, they are actually retired overseas in their mid-40s. So what his example and his family's example is, they bought a very nice home in Strathmore Avenue. It's rented out. He paid down the mortgage very aggressively a few years ago. And the rent itself covers his lifestyle overseas. So then you've got the relocating overseas. How do you retire well anywhere? That kind of conversations do expand our perspectives. And let us decide, hey, property in Singapore can get me that cash flow for rental. And how can I use that to live anywhere in the world? That's the power of property.
So it all depends on what you want and how you see your future. If you're going to stay here for the longer term, stay in this particular BTO flat. In a longer term, you probably want to invest a little bit more because it's your home for the rest of your life. If you're looking to just live there for 5 years and rent it out, maybe you can look for cheaper options when it comes to renovating. So, I mean, if you're opting for a BTO, how do you decide on which type of flat, whether it's a 2-room flat, 3-room flat, 4-room flat, as well as the location based on the savings that you already have?
I think right off the bat is affordability. If I want a very nice place in a very prime, very good area, but I can't afford it, then that's all I can do, right? But the challenge here is life do happens. As a couple, you should consider what happens when my parents get old. Do they need to stay with me? Do I need to provision a space for them? Do I need a room for them? How close do we need to be? So these are life factors. And if some elderly parents would say, no, I don't want to stay with you, it's okay. I want my own space. But with health worries, illness, disability, maybe you need to take them into your home. So having that conversation before you buy the house actually helps frame the whole life together kind of approach. Reasons because if a loved one is ill, and there's no space, you may need to hire a helper. That is another cost. So a few variables then to consider as elderly parents. Do you plan to have kids? Do you plan to have pets? And how would all this fall into place? So if I am able to afford a bigger space and I need to provision for my own parents down the road, yes, please buy that.
Okay, so do you have a gauge of how much you will need if you want a 4-room flat in a very prime location?
4-room flat, very prime location. I'm living in the East Coast area. So some blocks were selling for like 900, 800 asking price, resale flats.
For BTO?
But for BTO, we're looking at 600,000, 700,000 for 4-room without any grants. And the challenge is if I qualify for grant, means my income is not high enough because it's all income scale, right? But that's a challenging bit.
Yeah.
So ideally, you want to be able to have both your cash and your CPF to cover at least 25-30% of the down payment. So that gives you a very good gauge. Why I say the amount, even though you don't need so much for a HDB loan, is just in case I am out of a job. My finances can sustain the mortgage. I don't need to worry about, hey, can I pay the house tomorrow? Do I have money for mortgage?
So you need that exit strategy.
The buffer.
Yeah.
The buffer so that if really things are bad, the markets go bad, not in terms of stock market, but employment market goes bad, at least I can afford my house.
Yeah, so at least you have a roof on your head.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think everything you're discussing really comes down to circumstance. I like that term that you use, the life together approach. That's really good. It helps people lower their anxiety. I think people should have a strategy, all right? Are there any potential risks and long-term financial implications associated with purchasing a house in Singapore's dynamic real estate market?
I think right here, right now, would be the rising cost of housing. And there's not many alternatives for Singaporeans and PRs here because public housing, there are certain requirements you need to be, then you can buy it. And if you're going to find a co-living space or you're going to find a rental place with friends, it's very tricky. It's very, very tricky. So considering these bits of variables, right? Having your own place, it really keeps your mind at peace.